Hello, welcome to Search with Sean. And obviously me, Sean, again. And we have another great guest today. So before I do that, I get through all the admin as usual. So obviously, I'm Sean. I've been working in digital marketing now for several years, SEO for a good number of those as well, and currently the SEO manager at Macmillan Cancer Support, which I'm loving. And yeah, these chats are all with industry experts, whether that's SEO, digital marketing, AI, that kind of thing. And just to push the recent one I did with Ray Sadiq, who's really great. Probably seen him at Brighton SEO and other SEO based events. And we talked about social media, line search, how it all connects together. It's really cool. And also these chats are also on places like Spotify. So if you want to listen on the go, then head over to Spotify and you'll find them under Chat with Sean. So I suggest you do that. And finally, subscribe, please, because if you like things like this, and I've got chats booked out all the way up to November with some really great guests. So along with the SEO and AI news that we do on a regular basis, we also do these great chats. So if you want to be the first to hear and listen to them and see them, then subscribe and you'll be the first to hear all about it. So that would really help the channel. And obviously all the YouTube algorithm and everything that happens, it really does help. So please do that. And you'll see all those great chats, including this one. So I introduced the guest. It's John Hutson. And I'll do a little quick intro and then we'll get cracking and speak through a few of the topics that we have put together. So John has been working in SEO since 2008. He is currently the SEO manager at Inc Digital, formerly known as Mr SEO, which is a performance marketing agency based in Essex. And to throw a spanner in the works, he is my former boss at Climb Online. So we haven't done anything like this since then. So that's really cool. So welcome, John, and it's great to see you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and also great to see the work that you've been putting in, and great to see the kind of the growth of the channel as well. So congratulations on that, and it's good that you're sort of distributing across Spotify as well. So great stuff. And just to sort of add to my history, as it were, so officially I started SEO in 2008, and that was at Ladbrokes on the casino product. But prior to that, I just kind of got, I nerded out on the whole topic of the internet, because it was relatively new back then, of course. And so probably fair to say that I've been kind of learning all this stuff since about 2001 or so, 2003. So many years of sort of seeing digital evolve. But officially from 2008, as you rightly said, for the SEO side of things.
Yeah, cool. And you taught me a lot without building you up too much. you really did teach me a lot about SEO, and obviously, or hopefully, I've taken that on and put some of that into action. So I guess on that theme, since our days at Climb Online in 2021, search changed a lot. In your opinion, what's kind of been the changes you've seen most in the last few years, since in the last 2 to 3 years, basically?
Well, do you know what the funny thing is? It's kind of, on one hand, absolutely it's changed a lot, but on the other hand, the principles and the fundamentals still remain. So it's more around the kind of the weighting and the approach. Whereas, of course, I was speaking recently that, like, the primary difference is you could brute force your way to the top with, let's face it, kind of practices that were designed to take advantage of the algorithmic gaps, ultimately, because the search engines weren't as sophisticated back then. And now to be actually transitioning into more of a general like marketing approach, in respect of, right, okay, I do actually care about the type of traffic I'm getting now and the performance of said traffic. And then from an optimization standpoint, you've still got the fundamentals in place. You've got all the on-page stuff, which is, like, still to this day, title tags, H tags, internal linking, general keyword usage, etc., and topical kind of relevance, still all like the same as we knew it back in sort of 2005 onwards. But it's the other aspects, such as the link building side of things, which has kind of got a lot more sophisticated, shall we say, in respect of the search engines actually paid a lot of attention of how people were manipulating links, and therefore kind of worked heavily towards, right, how can we understand true authority in the space? Hence why they released, a viewpoint of EEAT, or EAT to begin with, then EEAT, to sort of try and get a true appreciation of who's considered an expert. So, as I say, on one hand, yes, there's a difference since 2021, since pre 2021. But the fundamentals are still rooted in those practices that we've been doing since the dawn of SEO, really.
Would you say that, yeah, like you say, the algorithm become a bit more sophisticated, so that those kind of loopholes have closed up? So now it's forced SEOs in a way to become more sensible in terms of the way they
Yeah.
approach, and like you say, the traffic now is so difficult to get, especially the traffic you want.
Mhm.
So you have to adopt these sophisticated models, or you're going to be left behind. Is that fair to say?
I'd say so. And also, if anything, it's arguably kind of put you into a better position to be more commercially minded and business minded, in respect of, it's all like, for us, obviously, it's always good to go, oh, look, we're ranking these positions. We've got, look at the graph from impressions, look at the graph on clicks, look at the traffic, all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, if that doesn't directly move the needle in respect of the commercial return that a client is seeing, or if you're working in house, that your company is seeing, is then vanity, really, isn't it? So it's sort of put us into a position, or it should put you into a position, where you then actually stop and think, go, right, do I need to see all of this, like, huge growth on those kind of metrics to achieve the result I want? And the short answer is no. So concentrate on, you know, working on sections at a time and gradually compounding from that point onwards, rather than sort of trying to throw everything at the wall and then sort of just sort of going, yeah, okay, well, we tick the traffic box. That's great. It's not, it's more layered than that. It's, yes, more traffic equals ultimately more conversions at the end, because it's just a numbers game in that respect. But concentrating on, right, who are true audiences, what are the pain points, and kind of trigger points off of that leads them to search in the first place, and then how can we capture that through every step of their search journey as well as search experience. So I think getting under the hood of, right, as a company, product, service, whatever it is, who are you trying to target, and how can we get in front of them at the right moments of their journey?
Yeah, I think that's something you taught me as well. Is that it? You, like you say, you could go and do a billion things, try little things to try and get traffic and increase traffic, but actually, if you find one little priority section of the site that actually is the one that makes depends what your goals are, obviously, at the
Yeah.
company. But if your goals are conversions or revenue or something, in that one section, if you just fully focus and optimize it, can bring in so much more additional conversions and revenue compared to all those other changes.
Hmm.
Then why wouldn't you focus on there? And obviously, and what you said kind of resonated with me, because obviously when I was Tahir on here, sorry, she was saying about, all these changes in search is really going to raise the bar for SEOs in terms of actually pushing us to think in that way. And also, Ray Sadiq was saying how it is going to force us, and we should anyway, as
Hmm.
SEOs, be looking at a full digital, being more educated on digital marketing in general, and not
Yeah.
just solely always looking for a SEO hat on, because it is going to open that up, and it's going to be really more important than ever to work with different teams like social and so
Hmm.
on. So yeah, I guess obviously you've been working in agency side now for a while. So from an agency perspective, what are the main challenges and focus areas you're currently finding with your SEO clients, and how are you combating these?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think something that always evolves over time as well, because you can, like, you kind of notice it when you're pitching for business as well, with whereby, in a lot of respects, based on what I touched upon earlier, is you could have 5 SEO agencies basically saying the same thing. We do keyword research, we do on-page optimization, we do technical SEO, etc. So therefore, in the client's mind or the prospect's mind, it becomes a bit of a commodity. And so they could then say, right, okay, well, I'm just going to go with the cheapest because on paper, you're all doing the same thing anyway. I'll go with the cheapest or the one that I resonate with most, whatever reason that was. So that's kind of one challenge, is sort of to make yourself stand out in respect of, yes, you're buying SEO from us, but you're buying much more than that, because of the way we think about it. It isn't just, we adopt all the classic SEO principles and we execute against them, but we work with you to understand, all your business issues in respect of, right, what gaps have you got? Are you launching a new service that you need to break into a new market? Are you launching in new territories? Have you got any other campaigns offline or across other platforms and channels that you're currently doing that could be leveraged by SEO, or vice versa? Could SEO feed into your paid media campaigns, because we've got all the good content that we're going to produce, the good landing pages we're going to produce off the back of that, and then those elements can be taken and then advertised appropriately as well to the right audiences. So challenges are ultimately, is SEO arguably can be seen as a bit of a commodity nowadays. It probably arguably has been for a while. And how you break away from that and saying, right, it's not just about the fact that we, put keywords on a page like 101 agencies out there do. It's what else do we look at and what else do we bring to the table more holistically. The other side of it is, of course, just the general side of things, is kind of navigating the whole kind of budgetary sort of restrictions recently, because of course, a lot of companies are needed to tighten the belts, and then breaking through the fact that SEO is really something that should be almost like heartbeat activity that just needs to tick along consistently. Even if it's a reduction in effort for a period of time, it should never be something that you turn off, because ultimately it's like, if you stop going to the gym, when you get back into it, you really feel it, don't you? It takes you a slog just to get back to the sort of weights that you could lift before, or the pace you could do on the treadmill before. It soon degrades. So I think that's another aspect as well, is kind of when budgets kind of get scrutinized, is making it crystal clear that SEO really just has to remain in some way, shape, or form, even if it's a reduced amount.
100%. That gym example is really good, in terms of putting that into context, and in terms of like people's knowledge on SEO. Obviously, there's a lot of news about Google in the news, probably more than there has been
Mhm.
since I first started. Like places like Wall Street Journal and like large publications discussing how Google run and the processes, and obviously AI has kind of accelerated that. But in sense of like your client's knowledge, has that increased, or how do you go around? Obviously, I find this internally. There's so many
Mhm.
people, and they don't. A lot of them, don't have the full knowledge on SEO and the benefits and
Yeah.
just the range of benefits. How do you go around educating your clients around what it can do for them?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things to that. So there's, of course, there's going to be a huge range of knowledge, all the way from what on earth is SEO, what does it even stand for, uh, to the point of where you know enough to be dangerous, because you'll kind of pick up on certain things and then not be able to like take the wheat from the chaff, and then understand, okay, the realities. And then of course you're going to be working with people that are super clued up, and they need a resource. So you're acting kind of in effect as a fractional team for them, rather than they sort of employ full-time overhead. They have you as a sort of a set of expertise, and of course the tool set that comes with that. So yeah, huge range of knowledge there in that respect that you kind of come across, certainly in the agency side of things. In terms of kind of showcasing the importance of it, and sort of where your strategy is working, it's just constant check-ins in respect of showing, right, we want to do this because of these reasons. We've done the research, this search demand. We know that you're launching this new service, whatever the rationale is as to what you're focusing on. It's then sometimes you need to do a proof of concept, right? So based on that plan, we're going to first launch, say, 2 pages as an example. You've gone from a zero base, or you were hardly ranking at all, but you had some kind of visibility. And since that plan, you were then like now in this position, or you've got more traffic, or you've got more conversions off of that. So a lot of cause and effect, really, of since we've done this, this is what's happened. Since we are going to do this because we expect this to be the outcome. So you kind of future pace what the rationale is behind it, why you're doing it, because at the end of the day, well, I probably speak for all SEOs, but there's varying skill sets, of course, is you don't do it just for the sake of it. You don't do it, oh well, I'm just gonna do this for a laugh. It's there's always a rationale behind it. But I think arguably it could be like a misstep by those that are putting that plan forward, of saying either at the very least the expected outcome, and the expected outcome, if they can at least try and anchor it of the end, like byproduct is going to be more sales or more revenue, more profit, more leads, more newsletter signups, whatever the end goal is, mapping that to the sort of like respectable KPIs as well would go a long way to kind of fighting your case. And then always never be shy to say, look, since we've done that, this is what's happened. Also, of course, leveraging other cases where you've done that exact plan for another client or another campaign or whatever it is, and say, well, 3 months after we deployed it, 2 weeks after we deployed it, 6 months after we deployed it, whatever it is, this is what we've seen. And so you're kind of then also setting expectations somewhat ahead of the time as well.
Yeah, it's great. And something that's to hear brought up is around displaying those results. So one thing I definitely took out of it is how to kind of drip feed sort of results as you go along.
Mhm.
So sometimes clients or stakeholders get a bit nervous if they're waiting a long time before they know kind of what's going on. So I
Yeah.
guess if you've got any other sort of ways of dealing with that.
Yeah, so I think because at the end of the day, with regards to the data that we've got available, right, a lot of it can even be daily data. Now, of course, if you zoom in too much, it can kind of skew the kind of the viewpoint of it. Of it's like, it's a dramatic decline, but you zoom out and it's actually still a consistent trajectory upwards, like, or vice versa. It's like, oh, it looks like an amazing increase, but it's just been one day or something. So you need to sort of like balance it in that respect. But certainly when you get notified of a result of sorts, just literal like a one liner, say, oh, by the way, just wanted to give you a heads up that we've seen this keyword improve, or we've seen a bit of a spike in traffic, whatever the kind of metric is. So I'll keep an eye on it, see how it pans out, but just to give you an initial heads up, it's looking positive. So you can kind of be almost not fully committed in respect of saying, oh yeah, it's definitely going to sustain that way, it's going to sort of change your life. But like anecdotally, here and now, we've seen a snippet of green shoots of performance, and I just wanted to let you know that. So yeah, definitely sort of never be shy to do a quick ad hoc check-in and shout about that initial results. Obviously, then sort of provide the caveats up front as well, and say, right, I'm going to keep an eye on it to see if it's going to sustain, or it might just be an initial shuffle, and then it might sort of settle in due course.
Yeah, I think that's the thing I've learned. That I've probably been guilty myself throwing too many numbers at people that don't really understand the context around it. So you simplify it in kind of layman's language, I
Hmm.
guess. So it's fully understandable. But like I say, put in caveats around, it's a small data set right now, so it doesn't tell the full picture, and that kind of thing definitely is the way forward that I've seen. And then I guess as an SEO, how important is it to understand digital marketing overall, and why? Obviously, it's something I discussed with Ray, but it'd be great to
Yeah.
hear your thoughts on that.
I'd say this could sound biased, but I do feel SEOs are probably in the best position to be able to appreciate wider digital, um, because if even if you boil it down to the basics of, well, let's face it, like SEO 101, probably the first thing you do by and large is going to be keyword research. So you start to get an appreciation for a sector or an industry or a business specifically, um, and then that should really kind of like populate your mind with, okay, well, obviously I need content to facilitate that search. I need to understand the architecture of the website. What's a general sort of like good journey that a user should like receive on when they arrive to the site. And so they should be almost like the early bits whereby it's like, oh, okay, I've got a wider appreciation now for other channels. And then it's a case of, okay, well, let's just say for argument's sake, you then start putting CTAs on landing pages because you want more newsletter signups. Okay, well, I've got a curiosity now about what's the email campaign look like. So if I do get these newsletter signups, what is then happening off the back of that? Or it's something similar to, okay, now I'm getting all these leads or I'm getting all these inquiries out of interest. What's the back end process look like to follow up with those leads? What content is being shared after by the sales team? Whatever it may be, there should just be a general curiosity. And I think because of SEOs, typically we have a curiosity because we've always had to be fighting against algorithms. We've always had to be fighting against user behaviors and not even fighting against, but going with, I should say. Then I think that should make you a better SEO if you then understand, right, how does social play a part? Because if I create good content, could social utilize that content, carve it up into nice pieces for organic posts and then paid social posts? The landing pages that we've created, is that more suitable now for the PPC campaigns because they're going to be landing on a better page than they ever had before because it's more relevant, and should they get better conversions? What keywords are converting for PPC, for instance, because we can't see nowadays in Google Analytics what keywords are driving the traffic. For instance, you get a feel for driving traffic, I should say, via Search Console, but you don't know what converts. So seeing, or at least speaking to your friendly neighborhood PPC, like saying, right, what keywords have been converting, does two things. One, it shows you, right, are you on the right path in respect of you should be going after those keywords, right? And if you're ranking, say, lower positions, it's worth getting them to the top of the page. If you're not ranking at all, is it worth the effort in the future to rank for them because they have been converting for PPC or they haven't been converting for PPC? So therefore, you can then go to the client. It hasn't been working on PPC. We're not visible at all. It's going to take a long time. I suggest we don't necessarily focus on that for the here and now because we've got that intel ahead. I always call it the canary in the coal mine for PPC. Because they can deploy like that and then they can feed that information back into you. So I think as SEOs, we're kind of indirectly blessed of having the ability to be kind of very lateral thinking. And then plus we've probably also got a natural curiosity to go down those rabbit holes and explore the other channels. So certainly just to round it out, you've probably heard the expression T-level marketer or T-level kind of skill set in respect of you've got each component, so social, email, paid media, SEO, CRO, that kind of stuff. And then you've got what you go, so top line level of knowledge, and then you go deep in one particular area. So for us, it would be SEO, for instance, but we've got top line understanding of the other channels that you can at least ask the right questions. And then, yeah, I can jump into AdWords and make an amazing campaign. I would probably jump into AdWords and rack up a huge credit card bill, but I still have an appreciation of how to talk to a PPC person and what questions to ask. So yeah, I think if there is SEOs out there that kind of are still concentrating purely on SEO, certainly I'd encourage that curiosity to grow as their career progresses, because it makes you a lot better SEO, really, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, and just on that, I mean, doing this on YouTube and other channels, and I've messed around with paid. Obviously, I used to do a lot of paid, but just recently, obviously, things have changed. It's helped me kind of fully understand more about those channels. But generally, as you say, organic are in a unique circumstance. In fact, that our channel kind of gets invaded by other channels, regardless whether we want it or not. So there's a lot of paid on there. There's a lot of social. So we're like it or not, we're always having to look at these things anyway, like you say. And then when you go to the content side, especially with the emergence of things like Core Web Vitals and EAT, we're looking at, we've got to talk to like UX teams, digital content teams, like you say, UX, we have to talk to all these just to make sure we're doing our job correctly. So I think we are in a unique position, but like you say, you've got to make sure that you're having those conversations and you're doing that and additional kind of research, because like you say, you just get stuck in SEO, you will get siloed and miss out on some opportunities. Some really great, it might be the fact that paid, for example, are taking a lot of your traffic where they don't have to be, and you could work with them to make sure that they're maximizing their budget, but you're also gaining additional traffic that you would have been getting. So stuff like that, if you don't reach out and have these conversations. So yeah, that's some great suggestions there. And in terms of, this is obviously, I stalked your LinkedIn and found some good things you've been talking about. So this is where it comes from. So you've probably seen me on there quite a few times. So what is the best way to map out a customer journey? I think this is more important than ever because there's so much information on the internet.
Yep.
The way that UX is such a key part of SEO now, and internal linking and that kind of thing. So yeah, what's the best way to do that? Especially if you've got
Yep.
like several or many possibilities
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I think, and probably on that note, actually, you'll never nail down the full digital touch point map, because there could be hundreds, if not thousands, of touch points. Of course, reoccurrences of like SEO as an example, or paid ads, whatever it may be. But generally speaking, whether you work in-house or agency side, if the time is afforded to you, but in-house, you generally speaking, you're part of the business, of course, directly, but do some internal sort of investigation. So speak to the sales team, speak to customer service if they have them, understand why people are coming to that company for a solution, and ultimately what the pain points they're having, what are the reasons for failure in terms of they haven't managed to successfully sell that particular person, and what are the common rejections, like, oh well, you were too expensive, or whatever reason. So certainly do some initial kind of sort of interviews, as it were, sit on sales calls, that kind of stuff, or listen to recordings. Customer service as well is usually a gold mine of information, definitely on pain points, because it could be a case of you've got when I worked in the call center, right? So we did a thing called demand capture, and it wasn't what we call now demand generation, demand capture type stuff. It was more, why are people calling us? And it was all recorded. And it was a case that there was what would be considered a failure call, as in they shouldn't need to call us because the information should be available to them. So it was a waste of a call, if that makes sense. So similar to that, you can take the information from customer service as an example, go, right, okay, well, people are calling us, people are emailing us, people are contacting us via whatever method, to ask all of these common questions that we should be able to surface much easier, much quicker to those people, so they've got all the information they need. Then you've got to understand what the actual audience is. So like I probably use the easier example that I can reel off straight away off the top of my head is, if you're buying a car. If you think about it, I did some work with Nissan many years ago, where of course got different types of cars. So the Micra, they were launching the new Micra back then. It's not that new nowadays, but it was a whole new audience they were going after, because the Micra had a reputation of kind of like a bit of a granny mobile, and just a cheap runaround type thing. And they were going after the younger market, so the typical people that would go, say, for a Fiesta, a Corsa, a 106 or a Saxo, whatever it is. So they needed to you needed to understand that market. So first time drivers, as an example, would be probably arguably a key market for the Micra in that case. So the trigger point is, I'm now old enough to learn to drive. What do I now need to know? Okay, well, obviously how to pass my test for starters, but secondly, I'm now going to be in market for a car. What's a good first time car? What the kind of insurance brackets are they in? What's the general running costs? Is it cool? What equipment has it got? All of those things have now, based on one trigger point of, I'm ready to drive. And then if companies like Nissan were clever enough, I'm not saying they're not, but if they were to think about this, right? If you get a Micra customer, what's the next stage of their life? Okay, they sort of now want to go away from like sort of the boy racer type driving or kind of street cred thing, to whatever the next tier car is. So okay, the trigger point is now, I'm going to start a family, or I'm going to sort of like settle down, whatever it is. Okay, cool. So I need a bigger car. Okay, so what's car is suitable for kids? What can fit push chairs in, like what all of that kind of stuff. What sort of hard wearing? All of those things. I see it as, okay, what's the common trigger point, and then off of the back of that, what questions do they have, and what content can you serve to them to answer those questions, and ultimately just be understanding of, right, yes, search will be there, but are there niche forums that people are going to be looking on to sort of get peer reviews and stuff like that? YouTube, okay, well, I can now take all of that content, wrap it up in a nice video, and put it on YouTube, advertise it against YouTube. Could you then do display on websites that they typically hang around on, and then answer those pain points? So, as an example, Mumsnet, I don't know, like advertise on there. So it'd be a case of, okay, you're likely to be in family mode now, and then I can sort of say, right, rugged, hard wearing, ideal for kids, great for long drives with the kids, because we've got this entertainment pack, whatever it is. I'm now talking directly to parents that are in that mode and think, actually, do you know what? My car doesn't facilitate children properly. I'm ready for the next step. 0% finance, whatever it is. That's now sort of put my concern at ease of like, oh yeah, okay, I'd love it, but I can't afford it. So it's all of those aspects. If you can get as many of those angles as humanly possible together, and then put it into a mixing pot, and then go, right, this is the content we need, these are the platforms we need to be on, and these are the formats for those platforms, and then produce. Now, I know I've said it's like, oh, it's easy, but but you've got to start like that, and then gradually chip away at what you can do in any given time frame. And I think ultimately, if you focus on that, people might get impatient. I mean, oh yeah, well, we're not done the YouTube bit yet, or whatever it is, or we're not getting much traffic. But I tell you what, long term, you'll be the brand that dominates, because you are answering everything, that every consideration that your audience has at every step of their life, if you've got a service that caters to that, and then you're serving that information. And then once you've made it, it is kind of evergreen anyway. So it's an asset, it's a massive asset. So a very long, fluffy answer to that's how I'd have to map out a journey, but boy, is it worth it.
Yeah, funny enough, I went through that complete journey quite recently, where I actually ended up buying a Nissan Juke. Funny enough,
Oh, okay, yeah,
yeah, for the kids. So they're doing something right, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
After I work with them, obviously.
yeah, but it's like we discussed with Ray Sadiq, is like that. For example, we just went over like a comparison piece. Your products against your competitors, and the fact is, like, that competition is going to be there anyway, so you might as well utilize it to your benefit, so you get picked up on those kind of searches. But just in terms of like intent and stuff, because I think
Yeah.
now SEO tools have advanced quite well in terms of like Hrefs now have like the intents behind certain queries in the search
Hmm.
results, and SEMrush, for example, has where people are going next, and that kind of thing. So I think, like, right now as SEOs, we've got more tools and information than ever before to be able to map out those journeys. I think it's
Yeah.
important as SEOs that we let other people in the organization know that we have these tools and these capabilities, because sometimes we get overlooked in these processes, because I think they just think it's like it's not an SEO thing. They'll do all the kind of optimizing once we've done it, but they can't really help for those early stages. But I think times have
Yeah.
changed and we can. And also,
That's
so go on, John.
Yeah, no, no, I was going to say that's a very good point. I think arguably we're probably not that good at our own PR to say, by the way, we have these capabilities, and we can research into stuff. Obviously, do what you want with it for your own benefit. But yes, we have got that ability. And just one very quick final point on the tool side of things is certainly the classic search volume. I've disregarded it for many years, but by disregard I mean I use it as a general scaling So this is the most popular in that keyword set. This is the least popular in that keyword set. I don't care about the number. And also, of course, don't forget it's not real-time information. So if there's kind of general searches and that bubbling around that are going to become a regular search in the future, it's going to have zero search volume. So based on your comment about intent, I would, I don't give a fig about search volume. If it's what you do and there's a high intent, I'm going for it. I don't care if it's 0 to 10 searches a month, because it's not. You can't tell me with billions of searches a day on Google that there's 0 to 10 or 0 people searching for something. Like, give me a break. So just if anyone out there is kind of just, of course, on their journey for SEO in respect of they're still utilizing search volume as something to hang their hat on, definitely avoid doing that in the future if at all possible. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that point up as well, and agree with you fully that you should be sort of promoting inwards that you have research capabilities for the search market, which should hopefully feed into wider business objectives as well.
Yeah, and on that, like obviously with topical authority, and if you know that your consumers through calls or emails or whatever are asking certain things, they're not going to be the only ones in the world, as you say, asking these things. So there is a certain, like you say, it's historical data. So like you, I'm very, obviously I use it as a measurement to some degree, but not. I'm not going to pin all my strategy on the search volumes that maybe we used to do back in the day, for sure. I think a
Yeah.
lot of SEOs used to, but obviously that has to change. And on that also, you have to think about the customer journeys. That sometimes, obviously, we're not in control of what pages Google ranks for certain
Hmm.
terms. So it's very possible that they're going to jump certain parts of that journey that you map out. So you have to make sure that when they get to a certain stage, they're not like, what? Where do I get to? What is this? I was looking for something else. So, you have to consider that kind of thing, and that's obviously why internal linking and breadcrumbs and that
Hmm.
kind of thing is really important on that journey. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to touch upon that. In terms of this is one I was really interested in because you post a lot about it. Or the Inc. Digital have a lot of qualifications and around this. So, what is HubSpot, and how do you make the most of it?
Yeah, so HubSpot, like at its core, is a CRM, so customer relationship management tool. It can be as basic as that, just is filled with all your customer information, their names, email addresses, whatever information you want to capture, all the way up to full-on sales tools. So you can do your phone calls from there, your emails from there. You can track responses. How many tasks you're completing, how many calls you've conducted, all that kind of stuff. So there's the sales hub portion. Then there's the marketing hub portion, so you can connect all your social platforms, also your ad accounts, so that you can get an appreciation for when a contact is created. Did they then eventually become a customer? What ad campaign was it that sort of generated that, and how much revenue was returned off the back of that? So ideal for kind of offline conversions, so that if someone needs to speak to someone and then close the deal that way, uh, like GA won't track that because it's an offline thing. It won't appreciate what the revenue was. And then you've got the other tools around it, such as customer service as well. So again, you can kind of like run your customer service teams from it. The beauty of it is it's modular by design. So you could literally just have the CRM portion and that's it, done with it. And then gradually, as you expand, you can kind of grow into it. So it's also, over the last several years, is really evolved into a platform that's not only still easy to use, even though they continuously update it, but can really truly form part of your business operations. So, good automation, not even just for email campaigns, but for back end processes that you'd always otherwise be manual, you can, facilitate within there. So, I've recently been setting up a portal for a travel company that specialize in school trips, so educational school trips. And for instance, it might sound silly, but it's a case of when they've closed the deal and the school trip is in, next year, as an example, they would have manually moved that deal or that trip into the fact that they're now on the tour. And that could be like 8, 12, 16 months later from when they actually bought the package, as it were. So someone then would have to go back and go, oh, should I move it? Should I move it? Should I move it? I've, I've just set up an automation when the departure date is today. It just moves into that next section, and then it triggers a load of sort of tasks to do off the back of that, such as, 2 weeks after they've returned, as an example, send out the feedback survey, and then check in with the teacher on how they found the trip and all that kind of stuff. So it's simple little things like that, of whereby you can automate a lot of processes as well, and then it just kind of really makes you more sophisticated as a business and more slick and consistent in providing that good customer experience. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of everything that it can be, but you can start small and then gradually kind of work your way up, and you can build websites on it as well. So it's definitely got better at being able to build websites on it. And then they've also recently released, or kind of re-released, shall I say, their CMS website builder to incorporate content as well. So they now call it Content Hub. And what's very interesting is they appreciate the need, and this is something that I'm very passionate about as well, like the need to be able to distribute your content across multiple formats and platforms. And so what they've done is, now granted, it's sort of semi in beta and it will get better and better over time. So I wouldn't sort of say it's press a button and off you go, but you feed it the primary source of information, say an article. Let's say you've made this nice long form blog post, and then they've got what's known as remix, of where it will then turn it into, say, an email or a social post or an ad or a podcast, for instance, that kind of stuff. So it will take the core information that you fed it and then break it into those types of formats. And then, of course, you can distribute it elsewhere as well. And because they realize that, not everyone's going to jump to, say, HubSpot and Content Hub to build their websites, you can embed elements on WordPress now natively as well. So they've got that kind of closer integration with WordPress. So yeah, something that I've started learning probably about 2.5 years ago now, HubSpot. And that also lends itself to my earlier point of, it's because I was curious in respect of, I wanted to know how companies were managing leads. I like, away from SEO, I like just general kind of optimization, and it could be about a business. So operations is quite interesting to me. I'm not an operations person. I'm not specialized in that by any way, shape, or form, but I do feel optimization mindset can help understand, right, okay, what processes have we got as a business, how can we streamline that, how can we make it more effective, how can we make it more efficient as well. And so that kind of put me down that rabbit hole. And so I love talking to businesses about how they can improve their processes and make it more, streamlined and affordable, really, to execute. Because still to this day, kind of understandable, but also a little bit inexcusable, is companies still run from spreadsheets. And I'm not saying it doesn't work, but you can't scale it, and you get very messy very quickly. So this is a great tool, or set of tools, shall I say, to really kind of take you out of that spreadsheet environment.
That sounds really interesting, actually. And that remix thing reminds me of, if you upload a video on YouTube, you can, using AI, it remixes and kind of adds little clips, it like generates little clips. So yeah, it's along those lines. And as you say, because if you work, obviously it depends how big the organization is, but if it's a large organization, things get very siloed very quickly,
Yeah,
and and you don't always see the rewards of your work. So if you're doing certain things, it'd be good to have this kind of centralized area. So that sounds really interesting. Definitely, like I say, I'm a bit like you, I'm curious about all these different things, and I do think the SEO's mindset of optimization, it does come into play, and yeah, so I think it's worth people checking out. I'm definitely going to do it. Got a few other things I must say I'm trying to look at. Obviously, AI has kind of taken over my life as well a bit, but
yeah, yeah. I
definitely,
think also, just as a shameless plug, we're a HubSpot partner now, so certainly if anyone's got any questions, then drop us a line. But yeah, I think on the AI side of things as well, yeah, you're right. It's a funny situation at the moment. I wouldn't even, I mean, I don't really talk about AI really, to tell you the truth. And it's not because I don't get involved with it. I very much do. It's just that I don't feel I've got much to bring to the table other than, like, I use it, appreciate it, what it's for. And ultimately that and automation, to tell you the truth, could be something that blindsides a lot of businesses out there, because at the end of the day, if your competitors can be more efficient and more consistent with what they do, and provide, and off the back of that provide a better experience, you could be dead in the water without, before you know it, because you're just so manual. And it's just so accessible nowadays, with, like, not even just AI, but with, I think the AI almost has kind of supercharged or made people more aware of the no code movement as well. So the likes of Zapier and make.com, for instance, where you can build these automation processes without a single line of code. um, you drag and drop that. Obviously you can make it as complex as you want, but you drag and drop things, you connect them together. It's visual, like, people can adopt that quite easily, whether you're a window cleaner or a dog groomer or a big corporation. There's places for things like that, that if you nail that and your competitors are left behind, you'll they'll be gone before you know it, because they've just not moved with the times. It's like saying, like, it's the equivalent of when, you know people were delivering stuff by horse and cart, and then as soon as the cars started coming along, the vans started coming along, stuff like that, those that thought, well, I either don't know about these car things, or I'm not interested about these car things, got destroyed by those that did. And it's the same with, okay, we're going to adopt computers now instead of typewriters, for instance. All those kind of things. This is just the next stage of it. And the main thing I would say is just keep abreast of it. Just, you don't have to dig deep, but just keep on top of what's coming. And also, the main thing is, if you ever poo-poo it in the sense of, oh well, image generation, they've got weird hands and all that kind of stuff, like, that's the worst it's going to be. It's never going to get worse. It's only always going to get better from that point onwards. So if you look at it, any element of AI or whatever is coming around, and you go, oh, that's a bit of crap, you're foolish, really, because if anything, not only should you be impressed, God, Christ, but you think that's the worst it's going to be, and yet, what's going to happen? So don't poo-poo it. Get on board, but you don't have to sort of be obsessed by it, so to speak. Just kind of keep a bubbling interest and keep an eye on things, and just sort of listen to sort of various podcasts and stuff like that, just to keep a bit on top. And then you'll know what's coming down the road before a lot of other people that don't sort of have that curiosity about it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you can't, with digital marketing, you can't be an expert on every single part of digital marketing. It's just impossible. That's why, like you say, I follow certain people that feed me information about certain topics that are the experts in their field. So whether that's local SEO or, PPC, or like with yourself with HubSpot, I wouldn't even know much about it if I didn't follow yourself. So, I think that's definitely the case. And with artificial intelligence, I mean, obviously, it's so vast just in its own right. But in terms of generative AI, I mean, I've seen a video recently of what it was last year in video terms.
Yeah.
Compared to now, it's ridiculous. It's so realistic. And like you say, people can do that in just a click of a finger. So it could be, and also, as you say, it's always been the case. It's not always the best company with the best products that wins. It's the most efficient companies that win, and take advantage of the situations. There's been some huge companies that have got great products that have just gone under in days. They didn't keep, like Woolworths, HMV, Blockbuster. In their day, they were huge, but they weren't kept up to date, and then it just flopped. And obviously, it's still HMVs around. I mean, I went recently, it was okay, but it's nowhere near the giant that it was. No. So, yeah, it's a really, really interesting, and obviously, I'm just interested with it because it's just something that's really caught my imagination. But it's it's going to be really interesting. ChatGPT 5 looks like it's a whole another level. So, looking forward to that one.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it seems relatively imminent as well. If you're kind of, I don't follow it directly, but I follow it kind of via other people. Is Sam Altman has been sort of teasing the next drop, so to speak. So it'll be interesting to see what comes in the next few days.
yeah, they're kind of secretly, I think, inputting little updates into the ChatGPT 4 model right now to
Mm.
try and see how it runs, and then I guess they'll drop 5, I guess, later on this year. But yeah, it's going to be a whole lot more better at reasoning, it seems, and
Yep.
its conversational sort of abilities. So I look forward to it. Obviously, as I said on my last show, I downloaded Pi, and I was blown away. And that's just using a really old model now. So I
Yeah.
can't imagine it's going to be like the future. And speaking of which, the next topic is, where do you see the future of search? Obviously, this is a quite broad question, but in terms
Yeah.
of SEOs, what should we be looking at?
Um, I don't think a crazy amount is going to change in respect of sort of general approaches of how you rank higher. I think that's almost the ceiling, really, in a lot of respects. I think what's actually going to change is user behavior is going to be a lot more fragmented. So, like Google, of course, over the years have tried to uh, allow for things like quick answers and stuff like that. So I said on the podcast the other week, and I should have kind of backed up my example. I said about, if you want to know how many calories in an apple, of course, you would write a 10,000 word article on apples to rank for that keyword, right? And of course, that was useless for a user. But of course, Google then surfaced things like quick answers, that kind of stuff, to try and sort of help with that. But I do think now, whilst Google tried to sort of launch conversational search many years ago, I mean, they've been at the forefront of a lot of this stuff, but they've just failed to keep on with it and failed to kind of promote it effectively so that the user sees that Google is actually evolving and will continue to be my first port of call for anything. But instead, they've kind of languished a little bit, I guess you could say, in terms of making sure that people are fully aware of the capabilities of the search engine. So I think what's actually going to happen is conversational search will be like that portion of Google's market will probably get eaten away quite a bit, and that will be because people will be used to having conversations with their phones, trivia type stuff, finding out things on the fly, probing deeper in a conversational way. And then, of course, you'd have what would be considered your traditional type research that you'd probably conduct via search and stuff like that. But also, of course, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to have the general, like, I wouldn't even say rise of forums. They've been around since the dawn of the internet, and they've remained steadfast. But then also video, of course, consumption of video and audio has become so much easier because of the bandwidth available and cloud storage, all that kind of stuff. Putting a video on the internet 10, 15, 20 years ago was like mental, and the bandwidth needed for that as well was just ridiculous. So yeah, I think ultimately my main thing is what is going to change is, if you don't behave like a media brand, you will lose traffic and visibility and general awareness, because you're solely reliant on a search engine that is gradually going to decrease market share. And it's not market share like, to the huge degree I'm talking. It's more a case of, for different reasons, people are going to use different platforms, and that's what their behavior is seemingly changing towards, rather than it's just Google all the way. And so what I mean is, to the earlier points, is utilize all your SEO research fundamentals. I think the pillar of your strategy is still going to be long form or volume of text based content. And then you take that, carve it up into smaller pieces, turn it into infographics, turn it into audio, turn it into video, turn it into a Pinterest pin, whatever it is, and then get that distributed across those channels. Because if Google decides to just punch you in the face one day and say, right, okay, well, I'm not going to rank you anymore, or continue down the route of, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape your content and serve it to people without giving you a click, then you're somewhat future proofed, because you've got all of these satellites of traffic opportunities and awareness opportunities that you've got that feed into your brand, rather than just here's search and that's all I'm going to care about. Because as I say, if behaviors change, or they are changing, and you're only a one-trick pony in respect of you're only working on search and traffic via a search engine, it's a ticking time bomb. And to be fair, any business that puts all their eggs in one basket on anything, be it a logistics partner, be it a whatever, you always run the risk anyway. So yeah, that'd be my thing that would be changing. I don't think from an algorithmic point of view and from a technique point of view, much will necessarily change. I might have egg on my face in the future, of course, when people play this back and be like, "Ha!" But I truly believe it's not going to be anything groundbreaking from a technique point of view. It's more a case of how do you make sure that you're in line with user behavior.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen, well, on certain properties that I look at, sites like TikTok, Instagram, so on, are taking, like you say, it's not major, but there are shifts in visibility and market share towards these different channels. So, as you say, if your website relies so heavily on organic or paid as well, in terms of like 80-90% of your traffic, for example, and for some reason that drops overnight, you're in a lot of trouble. So
Hmm.
distribution of content and utilizing these channels, and also, as a lot of people always say, go where your users are. Don't just distribute to channels for the sake of it. If your users are
Yeah.
mainly go on TikTok and Instagram, and go there. If they're on LinkedIn, go there, and so on. So you're not wasting, because it does still takes time. Obviously, even if you do have automated things and in
Hmm.
process, and also, yeah, it's about educating stakeholders again as well. They're going to be looking at, a lot of people still just focus on the traffic, and traffic is down year on year, and oh no, press the panic button and everything
Hmm.
goes chaos. Educate them around search is changing, the way they display information is totally different now. And okay, we might not be getting the same traffic levels, but we're still getting that visibility. The brand is still
Yeah.
getting the visibility. And also, again, some people are still very focused around engagement levels with content. And the way Google serves content now is totally different. So it may go straight to the answer. And obviously, the person's going to get the answer they want, and they may just leave rather than scrolling through the page trying to find it. So that drops off a lot as well, perhaps. So all these things come into play, and you got to just make sure you're educating these stakeholders around those changes, so they don't start worrying about what they're seeing, and
Hmm.
they think that SEO is not as valuable as it used to be, because they're not bringing in the kind of traffic.
Yeah, and not only that, but and to your point there, that's where you have an opportunity as an SEO to reframe the value that you're getting from it. So all the conversation that we've had earlier is about, right, okay, fine, you're an SEO in respect of you know how to optimize a website and you know how to get it ranked, but the component parts of that are your asset anyway. So let's say, for instance, you go, right, okay, well, Google's dead, right? Like, what on earth do we do now? People still need to consume content, and people need to sort of have information. So instead it's a case of, okay, well, my SEO capabilities, I know how to research a market, I know how to kind of ask the right questions about the audience that we're targeting, all that kind of stuff. We create content, and then, okay, well, a TikTok algorithm, right, well, we just get to grips with that. Like, what do people want? And ultimately, it's not really a ranking algorithm like Google, as far as I understand. It's more an engagement algorithm, and so therefore, if you give good content, people will engage with it, and then they just get served more and more of that kind of stuff. So, irrespective, we've got that kind of mindset of being able to reverse engineer somewhat. Plus, also, the component parts are the assets that fuel the rest of it anyway. So it doesn't matter if it's Google today, TikTok tomorrow, or platform whatever the next day. It's You've got all of those fundamentals, and you've got the wherewithal and the mindset of, okay, I need to get in front of my audience. What on earth do they need, and what format do they need it in, and where do they live? in terms of platform, not in terms of home address. So it's a case of you just have those fundamental skill sets that's just almost timeless, really. And so, as I said earlier, and you've kind of reinforced the point, if you only think SEO and search engines, try and get out of that narrow mindset and broaden your horizons, because it's so transferable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's probably our own fault because Google, as we know in the news recently, have a major stake in
Yeah,
the search market. They've made it that way. So it's, they own like 95% of the market. So it's only, you know, it's going to be the case that we focus on that. But times do seem to be changing. And obviously me and you are kind of old enough without giving it away that we remember a
yeah,
time without Google. And
without the internet.
well, not the internet, but then obviously AOL, Yahoo, and that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah,
So, times will change, and yeah, you've got to be on the ball to make sure that you're not left behind. You're just like a Google specialist, such.
yeah,
And then I guess if you got time for one more, you good?
absolutely. Yeah, far away.
So yeah, just on kind of similar vein, what do you think the roles of agencies would be in future? Because they might not even change, but I've not worked in agency now for a few years, so it'd be interesting to hear.
Oh, do you know what, this is going to be a tough one to foresee, but I think probably it might be that there's a general reframing of you. Like, I hire an agency and off you go and do it, and thank you very much. Like, because the amount of collaboration you need with a client nowadays has got more and more. You used to be able to like lock an SEO in a cupboard and they can go and rank your website, right? That you didn't need to necessarily talk to them per se. But there's a lot of collaboration that needs to sort of go on nowadays. So I think it might almost be, not that there's a change as such, but it's a change of how you are perceived as an agency. And I think you should be positioning yourself as you've got a fractional department. So I'm buying a department of people, or I'm buying, you know, um, part-timers, so to speak, rather than adding to my own overhead in respect of national insurance, pension, staff benefits, all of that kind of stuff. Then I've got to buy the tools as well, and then I've still got to probably get some kind of budget for execution, be it like content production or, you know, asset production, whatever it is. Instead, it's a case of like, well, actually, you're buying a portion of a department for a set amount of time per month without all of those additional overheads. So yeah, I think that might arguably be a way of how things will change in terms of the perception of an agency and what they actually do for you. Um, and then also it's on the agency to kind of make sure that you do fulfill everything as promised, and not only that, but kind of, you know, work with the company so that you are, you know, it's a partnership your end as well. You're genuinely excited to get them that more revenue, that revenue, or whatever the end result is going to be, and you kind of like, you share the wins as well, and you get excited about those wins, and also um, be sort of getting in amongst the weeds if things are going wrong. You know, how can you bring your skill set to the table, even if it's a case of there's nothing directly wrong with your work in respect of the SEO side of things or whatever service you're delivering for them, but as a business, you know, like, they've got issues as a business, something's going wrong. Could you at least ask the question and say, right, okay, well, you know, has anything changed on the website from a user journey point of view? Are there any issues that are kind of now cropped up that didn't before? Is it just, what's the general market like? Have we got search trends from a year on year perspective? Is the market down in terms of search demand? Is it up, but you're not capturing it? Is your message not getting through? Is the landing page optimized? You know, what's the copy like? All of that kind of stuff you can sort of bring to the table, even though it's not an SEO problem directly, or it's an agency problem that of your work, and collaborating with them in that respect. So if they bring up things that they're concerned about, like, hear them and see if you can at least help with advice or asking the right questions, and kind of digging deep. Because if you can become almost a business consultancy as well, I think that will be, you know, a nice string to your bow. And again, I know we've touched on this a few times, like throughout the conversation, but don't be blinkered. have the curiosity, ask the questions. And so I think if you frame yourself as you're buying a department or part of a department, so to speak, hopefully you should kind of have a lot more longevity in your relationship.
Yeah, that's great, and obviously more important than ever with the way things are going, VAT and stuff. I guess obviously when I worked in agencies, some people, clients were kind of like you say, just that's SEO, leave them to do their thing. Didn't really feel they needed to give us time to kind of collaborate and kind of having to give us assets and stuff to work with and stuff like that. I guess hopefully times are changing that you can realize that they're part of the journey and they need to be
Hmm.
involved, because all that sort of those signals around trust and authority are so important. So yeah, I definitely think yeah, that sounds all great. And in terms of, just to finish off, in terms of yourself in digital, anything exciting going on in the near future?
Yeah, so I mean, so in the immediate, well, present, shall we say, we've just moved into our first proper office. So that was a couple of weeks ago. I'm demonstrating the new pod, and as I was saying before we started recording, I need to sort out the lighting because I'm a bit like, really bright and shined upon. But yeah, so this is just to give us our own space in respect of, yeah, we've got a proper home now, proper office. It's been exciting. The company's still relatively young, and yet we've sort of made great progress. And then on that, in terms of kind of just general services and offerings, so the HubSpot side of things is relatively new. Since I joined the company, we then very quickly became a HubSpot partner, which isn't easy to achieve in this day and age because they've changed the criteria quite significantly. So of course we'll be pushing that more as a service, and then our kind of overall SEO offering is continuing to evolve. So one thing that we're particularly hot on is things like the CRO elements as well. So we don't just go, okay, well, we're getting you more traffic. We do utilize tools like Microsoft Clarity to understand the user engagement on the site and see if there's any things that we can put forward from that point of view as well. And then also we implement a lot of the stuff directly. Obviously, sometimes we need sign off and stuff. And then the next sort of phase, I guess, of our growth would be to expand more on our content production offering. So that will be kind of cross platform, cross media. So making videos and all that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, there's sort of the sneak peeks on the horizon.
Sounds good. Yeah, well, thank you for joining me. I hope have you on again soon, 'cause I really enjoyed this. I think we could have talked a lot longer, but you know, I'm
Always
sure,
can.
thanks for joining me today. It's been
That's all right.
really appreciated.
No problem at all. And yeah, thanks for the invite. And yeah, once again, great work with the channel, great work with what you've been doing. It's been a pleasure to see you sort of grow over that time since we worked together. And yeah, hat off to you for putting in the effort. So great stuff.